Not to tip, that is the to tip or not to tip, that is the question posed by TikTok star Aubrey Grace as she goes through awkward motions of being pressured to tip while ordering a coffee. When the cashier flips the iPad over, you stare at it, at least at the four options, 15%, 20%, 25%, or even 30%. You know you've been there. This happens all the time. This is the waiter or waitress stands over you, often looking at your tip selection, just sort of judging you, it feels like. It's like there's pressure. And frankly, what if the service stinks? What do you do? It doesn't stop there. You're pressured to tip when you have your groceries or lunch delivered and when you use a rideshare app. Heck, you're even asked to tip if you go and you pick up your food and they just hand you the bag, then they want the tip too. For more on the etiquette behind navigating modern tipping, I want to bring in Diane Gottsman. She's the founder of the Protocol School of Texas and author of the book Modern Etiquette for a Better Life. It seems like we have the perfect person to ask this to, Diane. I've been wanting to ask you this all day because I really do get stressed out with the iPad tipping because it's like you get a coffee and then the first option is 25%, and I always pick the 25% because I feel bad. But what are we supposed to do?
It's pressure tipping. And so we've all experienced it. And I think what we have to do is we have to be prepared. So you know it's going to happen. You know they're going to turn that iPad around, and be prepared to hit custom tip or no tip. Now, I don't encourage skipping a tip for most things, but when you are just being handed a prepackaged sandwich or a coffee that they've poured right there, you can feel comfortable either customizing your tip or hitting no tip at all. And by the way, they too are consumers. They stand on the other side of that iPad very often. So really the customer person at the counter help does know your angst.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing I've done is I'll just have a couple bucks with me and then I can do no tip, but I can immediately hand over $1. And so at least I'll still know that I'm tipping. And I agree with you. You always do want to tip. But this is a really big question for me, Diane, that I struggle with. What about to go? You go and you pick up, you call a restaurant, you call an order, you go to pick it up, it's at the bar and they literally just hand you the bag. Should you tip then?
So if there's a tip jar, I see a tip jar on the screen. You can tip if you want to, not necessary. Same with the back to the tablet. Don't feel the pressure. But if they've gone above and beyond, if you have multiple bags, if you're feeding 6, 7, 10 people, you're going to want to leave a little something. So I think the bottom line is the more work they put into it, the more effort they put in, that's how you determine whether or not they're going to get a tip. Now, you don't skip a tip at a restaurant, even if it's bad service. And of course, you're sitting down. That's the hospitality industry where they're working for gratuity. They're not an hourly wage worker. You want to certainly leave something. If it's terrible service, talk to the general manager and let them know. But skipping a tip is really not appropriate.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I would never. Even if the service is awful, like you said, it's just that's how they earn a living. We only have a few seconds left, but while I have you here, I want to ask you, since this is what you do you feel like etiquette has sort of devolved to a certain extent in our country just overall?
I feel that we want to do the right thing still, but I think that there are so many different questions that we don't know what to do. And then we freeze, much like this iPad tipping. Things are evolving and they're new. We used to say the standard tip for a restaurant, not table tip, not tablet tipping, was 15%. Now it's really 18 to 20%. So I think that we do our very best. We want to be generous when appropriate, but don't feel pressured to tip when it's not necessary as well. So you kind of have to read the room. If they're just handing you a muffin, I think you're going to be fine. But if you want to tip, please do.
Yeah, I like your phrase, pressure tipping. Don't always fall for the pressure tipping. Diane Gottsman, thank you so much for staying up and coming on with us tonight.